Hello my friends, welcome back. I am in Salt Lake City. I arrived here yesterday and today is the first video in Salt Lake City, United States. And the news today coming from Ukraine, oh boy, you're not ready for it. So if you don't have your popcorn and if you're not sitting down, I suggest you do it now. You know why? Because Ukrainians have sunk yet another big Russian landing ship. Why landing ships? Well, we'll get to it. There's a very good reason and you're gonna like it. It's juicy and it's connected to the Crimean Breach, the Kerch Breach. Ukrainian sea drones attacked the Russian landing ship Caesar Kunikov, and Caesar Kunikov was a Soviet soldier. And there's a very weird and bizarre story connected to the dates of today, February 14th, attacking the landing ship and Caesar Kunikov's death. We'll get to it later, wait for it. Near the coast, close to the villages of Alupka in the Crimea, and it's about 5 kilometers from the village of Alupka. And to actually give you a little bit of idea where it was, you can see it on the map right here. This is Crimea, and I'll zoom into Alupka. Trying to do it without a mouse here, but this is Alupka, and about 5 clicks off the coast of it. So it's a southern part of Crimea, occupied Crimea, and Russian landing ship here was turned into a stationary submarine, never to be surfaced again. Russian forces in occupied Crimea have reported to the citizens that if you see explosions, don't film it and don't post it, because this gives the Ukrainians idea that they were successful or not successful. Well, people didn't care. They saw explosions and they immediately filmed a lot. People who witnessed the event from the shore reported hearing consecutive, powerful explosions from the sea, leading to the speculation that the landing ship was being used to transport ammunition and was en route to a port. So there was a few explosions, and we're gonna watch the entire video from Ukrainian marine drones because it's beautiful and nice and Hollywoody, and it's an eye candy. I want you to see it. Now, this ship was possibly filled to the brink with ammunition because it is a landing ship and this is what they're used for, carrying that ammunition to Russian forces in the occupied south. The Ukrainian military confirmed the information about the ship being hit, which was 112 meters long and reportedly had about 50 Russian soldiers on board. Videos of the ship being attacked by sea drones are now available, and we will watch them. They are beautiful and juicy. And Ukraine used Magura V5 drones for the operation, and this is all confirmed by the official spokesperson of the GUR, or Ukrainian intelligence. The ship's name was given after a Soviet military person who simply had such a first name and who died. Check this out, who died on February 14th, 1943. So, name of the guy, Caesar Kunikov. Caesar is a very not Russian name at all. You don't get these names in Russia almost ever, or in the Soviet Union. He died at the very same date as today, and the ship was named after him, Caesar Kunikov. Coincidence? Or maybe the GUR is having a bit of fun with the dates. Alright my friends, now the moment you've been waiting for. We're gonna watch the video, and this landing ship, 112 meters long landing ship, was hit with Magura V5 Ukrainian marine drones, and this is the real footage. It's not a computer game, real beautiful footage. You can see the landing ship, and notice what the drone is doing, going left, going right. They are very maneuverable, very agile, and soon we will see Russians trying to hit the drone with machine gun fire, small arms fire, because this is supposedly their only defense against these drones. It's not very effective. They don't really hit at night much because this was 6 a.m. and it's really early, it's kind of dark, cannot hit anything. Very soon we should see the bullets hitting the water around the ship, around the drone, but not the drone itself. And this is only the very first one. And it's a beautiful moment when it connects to the ship. As you can see, the waves are giving a huge problem to the drone because it's lighter. Oh, boom, it hit. And now we see the footage of the second drone and we see the first primary explosion. It's huge, as you can tell. Possibly this ship also filled with ammunition. It didn't detonate yet. From the viewers' videos from the shore, we know that it detonated on the second explosion, and we will see it. Now on this footage, you can see already the damaged ship. You can see the parts that are on flames. and it looks magnificent. Now the waves force the drone up and down very violently, and now we're beginning to see some small arms fire being laid down on the drone. You can see the bullets hitting the water, but that doesn't do much to the drones. I mean, if I was a Russian Black Sea Fleet commander, I would put something more than just small arms fire against these drones, but as of now, they don't really have an antidote for it. Boom, second drone just hit. We are soon seeing the explosions. And there it is, huge, magnificent eye candy for you. Now is the time to just zip your coffee and eat some popcorn. This is unbelievable. Now we're seeing the third drone focusing down on the ship, connecting to the hull possibly. You can see already 2 explosions, the ship is pretty damaged. And now this footage right here, I'm going to pause so you can see. This is the Titanic on the side and sinking already. Imagine the song, "Every night in my dreams." That's what's going on the board right now. Because this ship is sinking on beneath your eyes. Yeah, it was turned into a submarine. It's confirmed because you see it in this video. It just went under, and all it took was 2 explosions of the drones and then the detonation of the ammunition on board, and boom, Russia got another new submarine. Beautifully executed by GUR. Now let's talk a little bit, because 2 weeks ago Ukraine attacked another Russian landing ship. If I'm not mistaken, it was Ivan Kurs. Might be mistaken here, but it also sank. Ukraine is focusing down. They could attack cruisers, they could attack corvettes, they could attack anything else, but they're focusing down on Russian Black Sea Fleet landing ship. Why is that? Well, because when, hypothetically in the future, let's say Crimean Bridge is hit, the Kerch Bridge, then what would happen is the ferry system would be back in action like it was when the Crimean Bridge was damaged, and the landing ships were carrying a bulk of the weight for military and for civilians. They acted as ferries because they're empty inside. As you can see from the footage from the B-roll here, the landing ship has, it's like a car carrier or an infantry fighting vehicle carrier, whatever you want to call it in very primitive terms. So these will be used as the substitute for Kerch Bridge if it will be destroyed. Now, if there are no landing ships and something happened to the Kerch Bridge, bada boom, it went up in flames, what's going to happen? Well, most of the Russian army is trapped in Crimea, and the situation with the logistics is going to become, if not impossible, then incredibly difficult. So Ukraine has a grand plan of action, which is not officially confirmed, but by them focusing down the landing ships, we know that some popcorn action is going to happen this year. The Kerch Bridge, that's what I'm talking about. Stay tuned for that. Now, my friends, the news that you probably clicked on this video for: Poland may want to acquire nuclear weapons, and we'll go to the official nuclear weapons treaty, the treaty to ban nuclear weapons webpage, and then all the information on Poland. We're going to watch the official information if they can actually do it or not. But first of all, I'll read you some reports stated by the Polish General Yaroslav in an interview with RMF-FM. He called such a scenario like acquiring nuclear weapons for Poland realistic within the framework of NATO's nuclear sharing program. I consider having such an arsenal as a task for several years. I hope it will happen. So he hopes Poland will get their hands on nuclear weapons. And of course, it would be the best deterrence against Russia. Not that Poland would need any nuclear weapons, because the conventional arms and means and capabilities they are buying are out of this world, off the charts, insane. Poland is aiming for 4% GDP for military spending in 2024, which is the highest in NATO. It's going to be the highest. To the comment that there is a cost to owning and using nuclear weapons, General Karzewski responded that peace and security have no price. Well, let's see what the price really is and if it's really doable diplomatically, politically and by law, because Poland is in the EU and in NATO. So these two entities, they do have very strong frameworks for this stuff. Poland has not yet joined the treaty to ban nuclear weapons. Poland has not yet signed or ratified the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. National position. Poland has consistently voted against an annual UN General Assembly resolution since 2018 that welcomes the adoption of the Treaty of prohibition of use of nuclear weapons. So Poland is voting actively against the ban of use of nuclear weapons. So Poland is, at least the generals and the guys who are doing the voting in the hierarchy of the country, top hierarchy, they are for. They're pro-nuclear weapons. And according to this one general now, he is waiting for that to happen for Poland. Poland supports the retention and potential use of nuclear weapons on its behalf, as indicated by its endorsement of various alliance statements of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, of which it is a member. So Poland is for using nuclear weapons. And of course, when you have a history with First World War, where your country Second World War, where Poland lost 25% of their population and ceased to exist completely and was partitioned by Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. I mean, if I was Poland, I would buy also all the conventional arms, and I would look at the nuclear weapons. Because if you don't have Russia as your neighbor, you cannot simply understand. It is not possible. You might get the idea, but you don't really understand. I would also look for nuclear weapons. Poland did not participate in the negotiation of the treaty to ban nuclear weapons at the United Nations in New York in 2017, and thus did not vote on its adoption. On the opening day of the negotiating conference, it joined the United States and several other states in protesting the treaty-making process. So US is against the treaty and Poland is siding with the US and against the treaty. And if you're next to Russia, very aggressive nuclear power, then any man or woman watching this video might say, oh, nuclear weapons, fastest way to World War III and the world destruction. Well, my friend, you're possibly living in a first world country, having neighbors who are not attacking you or not executing your mothers and fathers or sending them to prison. So if you don't live next to Russia, it might be very difficult to understand why even I would be pro-nuclear weapons living in Estonia. Now, my friends, we started with very good news, then we followed with Poland nuclear weapon news, but now we're getting a bit darker, and I'll try to ease it up for you as much as possible. It's about Avdiivka, the main push for Russian army. And I'll go to the military map, and I specifically chose a map today that shows Ukrainian and Russian units, which units are deployed where, and I want to show you what's going on in Avdiivka, because the situation for Ukrainians have deteriorated big time. Now is the time, me as with my Estonian infantryman's perspective, now is the time to pull out. This is where I would say, now we have to go. Of course, General Syrski and Zelensky, they have other ideas, and I do trust them. Syrski is very, very experienced, because he did a beautiful fighting retreat from Bakhmut, and he knows how to exhaust the enemy while saving your manpower and pulling out, making them pay for every meter they take. But in Avdiivka, you see, this is Avdiivka. In the south of Avdiivka, we can see all of these red dots. If I click on any of these, we can see burning Russian tank near bridge south of Avdiivka. I click on another one, drone drop on Russian infantry by the 110th. So all of these red dots are attacks on Russian advancing columns, infantry or armor. And as you can see, they have advanced into southern part of urbanized area of Avdiivka. An entire advancement route is littered with Russian infantry and armored vehicles attacks against Russian units, and possibly successful ones, because I've seen many videos. Now this is bad that they are in the urbanized area, very bad. As you can see, this purple area here is where the Russians have pushed successfully, and this Ukrainian pocket right here is facing very real threat of being surrounded. Very real threat. It's not just if they pull out, like they have to pull out now. From the north of Avdiivka, the coke plant, coal mining facilities, this small road you see right here, this is the lifeline of Avdiivka for Ukrainians. It's an only paved road. All the rest are dirt roads and very muddy and slow to traverse. So Russians cut this road. This map doesn't show it, but the Russians actually occupy now this road. Not firing sectors, but literally they have men and equipment on this road. Ukrainians cannot use this road anymore, and this is their only lifeline. The rest of the area here between Russian forces, the fields are about 3 kilometers. So with Russian Kornet system, they can, because it's mostly fields, they can have an anti-tank guided missile system facing all of this area right here. And if any Ukrainian machine is moving, they can take it down. So situation is so dire that Ukrainian logistics is almost not working anymore. And if you don't have logistics, you cannot fight. So So in my eyes, my limited understanding would tell me that pull out now, right now. Now it's the last time to pull out. And I think Syrskyi will do it, the new Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. I think he will. But this is bad news for Ukraine. Of course, Russians have taken insane losses. As you can see from the dots, each of these dots is confirmed loss of an infantry unit or a Russian armored vehicle, but they don't care because they don't count. Russians blanket Ukrainian units with scores of guided air bombs 24/7, and Ukraine has nothing left to counter that. It's very similar to the Russian Black Sea Fleet, where Ukrainians are destroying Russian Black Sea Fleet methodically, and Russians cannot do anything against it. Well, in Avdiivka, Russians are using their old Soviet glide bombs, which are Fab 500, Fab 1000 bombs, which are incredibly huge bombs, massive bombs. They make an explosion enough to take down a house. And they're basically Russian JDAMs. They have been equipped with a tail system and laser finder and GPS guidance. So they're JDAMs which make a huge kaboom, and Russia has an abundance of those. So 70 bombs per 24 hours. I saw the statistics of Avdiivka. It's really bad. You cannot hide for that. We know that Ukrainian 110th Mechanized Brigade has been withdrawn to the rear following the extreme costly battles that have continued since October 10th. This is not a reinforcement process that I mentioned in the previous videos. This is rotating. That 110th was rotated to the back because they had been taking considerable losses, and instead of 110th, we now have the 3rd Assault Brigade moving into Avdiivka, changing their positions with the 110th. I would pull out, I'm saying this again, I'm saying this too much maybe per this video, but a fighting retreat needs to happen really fast. We know that Ukraine's elite 3rd Assault Brigade has entered the fight as reinforcements. I would not call this reinforcements, but a rotation. A rotation that didn't happen for 6 months is happening now due to huge losses that Ukraine has been taking. The biggest enemy for the Ukrainian army has recently been fog, not the Russian armed forces, because with kamikaze drones, Ukrainians have been incredibly successful in eliminating all Russian offensive operations, but with fog you cannot use kamikaze drones, therefore Russians immediately advanced. All of these advancements from the south and from the north, from the coke plant, were due to fog. There were 3 days of fog about 1.5 weeks ago, and immediately Russians penetrated through the Ukrainian defensive lines because Ukrainians couldn't use kamikaze drones. Russia began actively attacking Avdiivka on October 3rd. So the battle for Avdiivka began on October 3rd. So October, November, December, January and February. It's 4.5 to 5 months. It's going to be 6 months soon. So it's almost a half-year battle. Let's see some of the statistics. And according to military expert Alexander Kovalenko, based on documented data, so this is visually confirmed losses, Russia has lost at least 214 tanks in only assaulting Avdiivka and most of the convoys going to Avdiivka, which is the size of a tank division. In addition, hundreds of units of infantry fighting vehicles and other equipment. Conservatively, Russian losses in the dead of that section are 15,000 people plus wounded. That is a conservative number indeed. I would think more. Now Ukraine has a new chief of staff, General Syrskyi, who is much more aggressive than Zaluzhny was. Zaluzhny was more balanced. And Zaluzhny always thought about fighting retreats and saving the manpower. Now Syrskyi was put on position of the chief of staff, and we were expecting more aggressive actions, but immediately he changed his rhetoric because there are no capabilities for offensive actions. The initiative is on the Russian side. There is fog, and Avdiivka needs to be pulled out of. So Syrskyi actually has changed his tactics. The rhetoric of the new chief of staff of the armed forces changed quickly, and now he is saying exactly what Zaluzhny said before him, that Ukraine must be on the defensive going forward. Now let's take another change that Chief of Staff Syrskyi has made ever since he became the Chief of Staff. The Krinky bridgehead of the Kherson front, where about 300 to 500 troops were holding back 10,000 Russians, not holding back but tying them up, not being able to move to other fronts like Avdiivka. Syrskyi has decided to send reinforcements into that area, doubling down on that small bridgehead. Now it's incredibly difficult to hold a position like Avdiivka, also Krinky, surrounded by 3 sides, and the Russian glide bombs are wreaking havoc, causing huge Ukrainian losses. But Syrskyi is doubling down, sending more and more troops across the river to hold that. It's much like Stalingrad, where the Soviets only had a small bridgehead and they were funneling troops across the river. Only Ukrainians are not taking that big of losses. But in a way, Stalingrad, that they are occupying or tying down huge portions of Russian capabilities in the south that Russia could use elsewhere otherwise. And if you can do that with 500 troops and tie up 10,000, it's job well done. Unfortunately, losses are huge for Ukraine in Krinky. Another big change General Syrskyi has done and is the change in stockpiling mortar and howitzer rounds. See, Zaluzhny's tactic was very balanced. We stockpile rounds, and when we have enough, we're gonna make a counteroffensive. Now, the 2023 summer counteroffensive for Ukrainians was a painful lesson and almost a failure. So now Zaluzhny had been up until now against stockpiling shells to do another great offensive. But Syrskyi immediately changed that tactic, and while going to active defense, he now has allowed to be used all of these stockpiled shells for defense. More mortar action, more howitzer action. This means there will not be a big Ukrainian counteroffensive anytime soon, but this means they can defend better, demilitarizing more Russians. So I do agree with this Syrskyi's doctrine change, because you cannot stockpile munitions if your soldiers need them to survive and are taking losses right now. Now, my friends, I want to talk a little bit about Ukraine funding from the US, because the Senate approved the funding, of course, but probably the House won't approve it and they will obstruct it, or however you call it. But the House is led by Republicans, so they don't really want to do this right now, so it probably won't go through. But I just want to open up where previous United States aid in billions has gone to, because there is a big misconception among people, especially in the US, that the money will go to Ukraine and that Zelensky is corrupt and they're stealing the money. Now, I'll open up what is really happening to the money, so we are on the same page. Appropriate Ukraine funding actually includes 50 billion that is spent in the US, so spent physically in United States to procure weapons and increase production, creating and manufacturing jobs. These maps depict just a portion of the sum and do not reflect either total defense spending by state or total amount spent on procurement and investment since February 2022. But I will read them to you, because if you're from one of these states, then you know that this money from the Ukraine aid bill, that for some people, unfortunately, is like Zelensky's corruption money. Actually, this is the numbers that have been already spent in these states. The top recipient states of those contracts and Ukraine aid money are Arkansas or Kansas, 2.3 billion, Arizona, 2 billion, Pennsylvania, 1.9 billion, California, 1.5 billion, Texas, 1.4 billion, Florida, 1.1 billion, Alabama, 900 million, West Virginia, 900 million, Massachusetts, 800 million, Ohio, 800 million. And this is money physically spent in the US in these states, and that has already happened. So this money has not gone into Ukraine, and it's part of the Ukraine aid bill. The top per capita recipient states are, so per person, Arkansas $770, West Virginia $500, Arizona $280, Iowa $239, Alabama $186, New Hampshire $161, Pennsylvania 152, and Massachusetts 125, Mississippi 115, and Missouri $113. So this is the amount per person. And on this photo you can see the map visualized by states also, and this blue color is 1 billion and plus spent in the US out of Ukraine aid bill, and direct industrial investment, industrial base impact. You can go and search this, and it's a beautiful map showing how the United States is benefiting greatly in the long term from this bill. And this bill doesn't really go to Ukraine. The end product goes to Ukraine, but it is made in the US, and anybody who understands logistics and economics knows that the one who makes the product gets the profits and gets the most, wins the most out of it in the long term. The one who receives the end product wins in short term, but not in the long term, because the products will be made and made and made, and they will be used in Ukraine for Ukrainian benefit. But the ones who make it, so United States, these states, they are the real winners here. Now, my friends, I'll show you an interesting map that coincidentally coincides with Russian invasion of Ukraine. This is not Russian invasion map. This is actually Ukrainian mineral and natural gas deposits. So big money in the future. If there was no war, we're talking about tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions in natural gas, coal and rare earth metals in Ukraine. And most of them, as you can see, are around Crimea in the sea, the natural gas, and then in the occupied Donbass and Luhansk and in southern Ukraine. We're seeing huge natural gas fields. There is even some oil. There's coal. There are more rare earth minerals in tens of billions of USD worth. So Russian interest might not be the desolation of Ukrainian state, but actually getting their hands on this huge, rich area in natural resources. So this is not really much talked about, but this is so much money in the ground that of course Russia wants it, and of course Ukraine wants it. Both of them want it. A lot of the mining and producing and extracting of these minerals and these values are being stopped because of war right now. But if they were to be extracted, whoever is extracting them is gaining immensely. And right now, since Russia occupies Crimea, they are stealing this natural gas from Ukraine. Not that they have deficit of it. They have a lot in Russia, but they want more. Now, my friends, my favorite part of the video, which is butchering the Patron names with my impossible Estonian pronunciation. It sounds like somebody saying your name with a chopping axe. It's a very robust way of thanking my Patreons. Let's go. Mikke Maihev, Havox, Lele, Klaus Armezeder. It's actually Arne Zeder. Markus Fellnert, Tean Maltsberger, Roy Greenwood, Andres Talk. Thank you to these patrons. And if you like my channel, you can become a sergeant of Artur's army. Patreon link is in the description below. I'll be butchering your name. And my friends, now at the end of the video, I want to give you even more of a goodbye note and eye candy. I'll play you the whole video of how we delivered your donated Needle and Baba Yaga drones, the Vitnik Slayer or the huge drone that drops 120mm bombs on Russian tanks. You made this possible with your $182,000 of donations. So I just want to make sure you know that this money goes to the right place and we delivered your mission. Here it is, my friends. And until my next video, which will be tomorrow, Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye. My friends, Christmas is over and you guys wanted presents for Ukrainian units and you wanted presents also for Russian units, and we are here to deliver. As you can see, the fundraiser was extremely successful and you can see the outcome of it behind me and in front of me. The guys you see around me, they are responsible for a big portion of these videos you see online where drones are demilitarizing Russian occupiers. And we are here and you guys actually made it possible for them to do their job even more effectively. This here, my friends, is Alex Kinnish.
Good to see you, Artur. The campaign was so successful, Artur. We sold over 800 of the Vatnik Slayer patches alone, so that raised 80,000. I think in total for the entire campaign it was $180,000. It was the best ever 69 Sniffing Brigade campaign to date. This convoy is the largest one that we've done in a handover ever. Over $500,000 worth of equipment going to the Ukrainian armed forces over this weekend.
And you guys made it possible directly. If you know you got one of these patches, then you are very directly responsible for the cars, for the drones, for everything that is happening here today. Let me go into a little bit what do you see here. This here is Needle. Yes, from Game of Thrones, Arya Stark's sword, the Needle, because it stings like a needle. The purpose of this drone is to hunt down Russian electronic warfare units, machinery, equipment. It goes into it explodes in a magnificent way, and then other drones can follow suit because the air is clear, no more jamming. HIMARS, Storm Shadow and precision weapons like that will follow and clean up the job. This drone, my friends, is called Baba Yaga. I would love to say it's from John Wick, the boogeyman, but actually it's an old Slavic fairy tale. It's the Vitnik Slayer. It is the last thing the occupier orcs will see and hear before they are knocked out cold and demilitarized. These drones will liberate Ukraine one tank at a time, one occupier knocked out cold at the time. You guys made this possible, so thank you for it.